the night the cameras went blind. Starting with the dark, suspenseful YouTube-style hook you requested. Before we dive in, remember, every crime has a shadow, and every shadow hides a truth. If you're ready for more real cases that twist deeper than anyone expects, hit subscribe, like, and drop a comment, because tonight's story is one you won't forget. The alarm hit at 2:14 a.m. It was sharp, metallic, and wrong in every possible way. At Blackridge Correctional Facility, alarms don't fire without a reason. But this time, no one understood what triggered it, until the screens inside the control room began flickering like dying streetlights. One by one, cameras across Wing C dissolved into static. Not broken. Not offline. Just blind. Officer Hale was the first to react. A 10-year veteran with a posture carved from stress, he stared at the monitors, waiting for the signal to reset. But instead of rebooting, the system went pitch black. All 42 cameras covering the most unpredictable wing of the prison flatlined at the exact same second. Nothing like it had ever happened in Blackridge's history. And in a maximum security environment, 14 minutes of blindness wasn't bad, it was catastrophic. Within seconds, Hale and his partner were sprinting down the corridor, boots slamming the concrete in echoing bursts. The prison at night was a breathing thing, metal doors humming, fluorescent lights flickering, the distant, uneasy murmur of inmates unable to sleep. But as the officers approached Wing C, something about the air felt hollow. Too still. Too silent. The kind of silence that makes you feel watched even though you know no eyes are on you. They expected chaos. Fights, screams, someone taking advantage of the sudden darkness. But when the emergency team stormed the wing, the scene froze them in place. Every inmate stood inside their cell, motionless, tight-jawed, staring toward the hallway as if they sensed something the officers couldn't. No shouting. No movement. Even the troublemakers stood pinned to the back wall with a look that wasn't defiance, it was confusion. And fear. Officer Hale scanned the row. What the hell happened here? His voice cracked through the corridor, but no one answered. Then finally, one inmate stepped forward, placing his hands calmly on the bars. "We didn't do anything," he said. "Everything just went quiet." Like the whole wing inhaled at the same time. The hairs on Hale's arms stood up. That wasn't how power failures behaved. But it wasn't a power failure. Lights were on. Locks were functional. Only the cameras had gone blind. And the timing was way too perfect to be accidental. A quick sweep confirmed no doors were tampered with, no devices hidden, no signs of planned disturbance. The prisoners looked as confused as the officers were. When the cameras finally came back online, the control room erupted in confusion. Logs showed no system error, no electrical overload, no sign of a short. The recordings from those 14 minutes didn't even exist. The feed hadn't just died, it had been erased. The warden was called in before dawn. A severe, restless man named Duncan Keats. He moved through the control room with an expression caught between anger and disbelief. He ordered the IT division to run diagnostics, demanded answers, and questioned every officer present. But the only certainty was this: someone had targeted Wing C, someone who knew the system, someone who understood exactly how to slip into the heart of the surveillance grid without leaving fingerprints. And as investigators began their first sweep, Hale noticed something strange. The server access panel under the main console, usually sealed with a state-approved lock, carried a fresh scratch, thin, deliberate, and recent. He leaned in closer, tracing the mark with a gloved fingertip. It didn't look like damage. It looked like someone slid a tool inside with precise intention. He stood back, a curse caught in his throat. The blackout wasn't random. Someone had touched the system, and they were confident enough to leave a reminder. But the real shock came minutes later, when the IT technician examining the server went pale. He motioned for the warden, whispering something too quietly for Hale to hear. Keats stepped forward, face tightening as he looked at the open panel. Inside, hidden behind bundled wires and dust, was a tiny device, no bigger than a matchbox. Not prison-issued. Not state-issued. A device meant to bypass security logs and remotely access the camera network. And worse, it had been there for weeks. Hale felt the weight of the moment settle over the room. Someone had been watching them. Someone had been waiting. And someone inside Blackridge had just pulled the first thread of something far bigger than any of them understood. Because when they traced the device back to its original installation point, it led to a name no one expected. A man who wasn't even supposed to be inside the prison anymore. A former contractor. A man who had disappeared months earlier without a trace. And tomorrow, when investigators dug deeper, they would discover the part that changed everything. His fingerprints were still on file. They just weren't supposed to be there anymore. The sun hadn't fully risen when the investigation team arrived at Blackridge. Rain clung to the fences in thin, silver threads, and thunder rumbled far enough away to feel like a warning rather than a threat. Warden Keats stood outside the security wing waiting for the lead investigator, Special Agent Dana Rourke, a calm but razor-sharp federal analyst known for uncovering digital crimes buried behind layers of deception. She stepped out of her vehicle and immediately scanned the perimeter with the intensity of someone piecing together a puzzle she hadn't even seen yet. Inside the control room, technicians worked in silence as Rourke studied the matchbox-sized device that caused the blackout. It was custom-built, cleverly disguised, and wired to bypass the system without triggering any alarms. She recognized the design, an updated variation of a tool used years earlier in a case involving a data sabotage attempt at a corporate facility. Whoever built this one knew exactly how Blackridge's network functioned. Rourke's finger tapped the casing twice. "This isn't inmate work," she said. "This is someone who had access before the new security protocols rolled in. Someone who understood the weak points that no longer exist publicly." Warden Keats nodded grimly. "We only have one person who fits that description. The contractor." "Evan Mercer," Rourke said, already pulling up the old personnel file on her tablet. Mercer had worked maintenance during a statewide upgrade 2 years earlier. The company he worked for had folded shortly after, and Mercer vanished off the map. Not criminally. Just gone. No listed address. No activity. And now, apparently, no hesitation sabotaging a maximum security surveillance grid. Rourke scrolled deeper into the file. "You terminated his contract early," she said to Keats. "We did," Keats replied. "We caught him making unauthorized adjustments. He said it was to optimize efficiency. My gut said otherwise." "And you didn't pursue it further?" "He left before we could." Rourke held back her frustration. She had seen too many cases where a small oversight grew into a massive breach. Keats wasn't wrong for trusting instinct, but he had been too slow acting on it. And now the entire prison was paying the price. As they moved toward Wing C, they passed Officer Hale, who was reviewing the inmate statements from the night before. Hale looked exhausted, running on adrenaline and doubt. Rourke waved him over. "You were first on scene," she said. "Tell me what you saw." Hale recounted the eerie silence, the inmates frozen in place, the feeling that something unseen hovered over the wing during the blackout. Rourke listened carefully, her expression focused, not dismissive. When he reached the part about the scratched panel, she stopped him. "You said the scratch was thin and deliberate," she clarified. "Not like a tool slipped, but like someone left it intentionally?" "Yes," Hale replied. "Like a mark. Almost a message." Rourke didn't like coincidence. "Show me." The panel was still open when they arrived, wires neatly separated by the technicians. Rourke crouched down, running her glove along the scratch. It wasn't random. It was a clean, precise line, perfectly straight. She leaned closer and narrowed her eyes. "There's something carved inside the line," she muttered. Hale froze. "Carved?" Rourke signaled for a light. A technician angled a beam toward the groove. Inside the thin scratch, nearly invisible unless you searched for it, was a microscopic sequence of numbers. Tiny, engraved, and deliberate. Rourke read them out loud. 295371. Warden Keats stiffened. "That's an access port ID," Rourke finished. "But not for this wing." Hale looked between them. "Where does it lead?" Rourke stood up slowly. "The old utility tunnel. The one sealed after the structural assessment in 2012. Hale frowned. "That tunnel shouldn't even be active. There's no reason anyone would mark it." That's exactly why someone did, Rourke replied. They headed toward the basement level, where the tunnel entrance was supposed to be sealed behind reinforced steel. The deeper they went, the colder the air became. Pipes clanged overhead, and somewhere distant, water dripped steadily in a hollow rhythm. When they reached the door, Rourke stopped. The sign on the metal barrier read restricted, sealed area. But the seal wasn't intact. The thick lock had been replaced with a newer one, but the metal around it showed signs of tampering. Not sloppy, quiet. Precise. Rourke handed Hale a flashlight. If Mercer installed something in the camera system, then he needed a place to connect remotely. This tunnel is the only blind spot left in the original blueprint. Hale swallowed hard. But he hasn't worked here for 2 years. Exactly, Rourke replied. Which means he came back. And no one noticed. The lock clicked open under Rourke's tool. She pulled the door slowly. The hinges moaned, and a gust of cold, stale air swept out. The beam of the flashlight cut into the darkness, and something metallic glimmered in the corner. A wire. A small one, running along the wall and deeper into the tunnel. Then they saw it. Not a device. Not a box. Not equipment. A laptop. Open. Running. Connected to the prison's internal network. Rourke stepped forward. He was here recently. Very recently. Hale checked the system logs visible on the screen. His heart dropped. These timestamps, someone accessed the cameras again. 5 minutes ago. Rourke exhaled sharply. He's not done. She turned toward the open darkness of the tunnel. He's still inside the facility. The tunnel felt like a throat leading into the bowels of the prison, narrow, stale, and suffocating. Rourke moved first, her flashlight cutting a thin path through the darkness, Hale behind her with his hand trembling near his holster. The laptop's glow still lingered behind them, a quiet reminder that Evan Mercer, ghost employee, vanished contractor, digital saboteur, wasn't a ghost at all. He was here, somewhere ahead, breathing the same air. Rourke kept her voice low. He didn't trigger a blackout to cause chaos. He triggered it to measure response time. He's probing for weaknesses. Hale swallowed hard. But why come back tonight? Because last night was the test run, she answered. Tonight is the plan. The tunnel sloped downward, and the temperature dropped with it. Water dripped steadily in the distance, echoing like footsteps that didn't belong to anyone. The beam of the flashlight hit rusted pipes, old service panels, and thick cobwebs untouched for years, until suddenly, the dust patterns changed. Footprints. Fresh ones. Rourke crouched. Heavy tread. Same boot pattern seen at the server panel upstairs. She stood, jaw clenched. He's been moving freely through this tunnel for weeks. The path opened into a larger chamber. This used to be a central junction where maintenance teams once connected cables and rerouted systems during the original construction. Now, it was a hollow room with decaying wires hanging like vines. In the corner, a stack of crates had been pulled apart, forming a crude workspace. On top sat tools, wires, and a portable modem flashing with a soft, steady pulse. Hale scanned the space. This isn't some random setup. He's got a whole base down here. Rourke approached a set of notes taped to the wall. They were handwritten diagrams of the prison's camera grid, camera angles, system vulnerabilities, emergency override sequences. But one section was highlighted in bright red. Administrative wing, access point E. She stepped back, understanding slamming into her like a blow. He isn't targeting the prison. He's targeting the state contract office connected to this facility. Hale stared. Why them? Rourke met his eyes. Because they shut down the company he worked for. Because they flagged his designs as insecure. Because he blamed them for destroying his career. She gestured at the modem. This tunnel connects directly beneath their network line. He's trying to force a payout by threatening to crash both systems. Hale looked around, nerves tightening. So where is he? A faint, metallic click echoed behind them. Both turned. At the far end of the chamber, a shadow separated itself from the wall. Then another sound, a quiet, controlled inhale. Rourke raised her flashlight, and the beam met a face gaunt with stress, weeks of isolation written in the hollow eyes staring back at them. Evan Mercer stepped forward, hands visible but tense. His voice came out calm, almost rehearsed. "I never wanted this to get out of hand." Rourke kept her stance steady. "You orchestrated a blackout in a maximum security prison. You built a tunnel operation. You accessed state systems without authorization. What exactly did you want, Mercer?" He swallowed hard. "To be heard." "You sabotage a prison to be heard?" Hale snapped. Mercer's expression twitched. "They took everything from me. My career. My reputation. They said my designs were flawed, but they used them anyway. Then they blamed me when it all fell apart." He gestured around him. "This wasn't supposed to be dangerous. Just visible. Just enough to show them I still mattered." Rourke's gaze lowered to his hands, shaking, but not from aggression. From fear. Fear of failure. Fear of being forgotten. "You crossed a line," she said quietly, "and you knew you'd never come back from it." Mercer exhaled shakily. "I never thought they'd send someone like you to find me." Rourke stepped closer. "Evan, this ends now. Walk out, turn yourself in, and no one gets hurt." For a moment, Mercer hesitated. His eyes flicked toward the modem. The flashing rhythm sped up. Hale noticed first. "Rourke," he warned. That signal just strengthened. Rourke raised her voice sharply. "Evan, what did you activate?" Mercer's breathing hitched. "It's just a ping. Just a..." The lights overhead flickered. A surge pulsed through the wires like a jolt of electricity sprinting toward a finish line. Rourke understood instantly. He triggered an automatic crash protocol. If he stops the signal now, it shuts everything down. Not just cameras. Doors. Blocks. Communications. Mercer backed away. "I can't stop it. It takes 30 seconds to reset manually, and the access point's upstairs." Rourke reached for him. "Then we have 30 seconds to get out of this tunnel." They moved together, Rourke dragging Mercer, Hale sprinting ahead with the flashlight cutting through the dark. The tunnel shook with the hum of systems failing one by one. A countdown in the walls themselves. At the laptop station near the entrance, Rourke shoved Mercer forward. "Stop the signal. Now." Mercer's fingers flew across the keys. Red warnings flashed. The system beeped angrily. Hale hovered behind them, heart hammering as the network code raced down the screen like a fuse burning toward an explosion. Then suddenly, everything froze. Lights steadied. The modem went dark. Mercer sat back, chest heaving. "It's over." Rourke cuffed him gently, almost regretfully. "Not yet." By sunrise, agents seized the equipment, the tunnel was resealed, and Mercer was escorted out of Blackridge in silent defeat. The prison resumed operations, stunned but stabilized. Warden Keats stood at the gate, watching the transport van pull away, the weight of responsibility heavy across his shoulders. Rourke returned to the control room one last time. Hale met her at the door. "You think he would have gone further?" he asked. Rourke looked at the empty chair where Mercer had once worked years before. "He already did." She walked out into the morning light. The case was closed, but the realization lingered like a shadow behind her. For 14 minutes, one man with a grudge and a laptop had brought a maximum security prison to its knees. And the scariest part wasn't what he did. It was how easily he did it. If you thought this story was intense, the next one dives even deeper into real cases that changed everything. Make sure you subscribe, because the shadows only get darker from here.